Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a really singular, monumental 7-word declaration to uncover its profound rhetorical weight. Because, let's be real, sometimes it doesn't take a massive, terabyte-sized dataset or a 30-page academic research paper to tell a gripping story. A single sentence can literally contain an entire universe of suspense, despair, and sudden, shocking relief. So grab your analytical hats, because we're going to break down the sheer anatomy of salvation itself.
Let's start with the solitary artifact we're analyzing today. The 11th hour miracle is here. I want you to just sit with these words for a second. Really, just read them back to yourself in your head. Let the sheer, dramatic tension of this statement totally sink in. It's incredibly brief, but man, it is incredibly heavy, isn't it? It carries the absolute weight of a desperate situation that has just been abruptly resolved. And the crazy thing is, we don't necessarily need to know the broader context right now. We don't need to know who is being saved or from what, because the language itself is so universally potent. We instantly feel the gravity of the moment. With just these 7 words, we are dropped right into the climax of an invisible, super high-stakes story.
All right, let's break this down. Part 1. The ticking clock. Exploring the brink. Notice how establishing the 11th hour right at the absolute outset forces us to confront a scenario of maximum tension. By definition, the 11th hour is the latest possible time before it is, quite simply, too late. It signifies a moment of extreme, final urgency. When you hear those words, you instantly picture a ticking clock, right? You can almost hear that secondhand echoing in a completely quiet room. It tells us that time had practically run out, and disaster wasn't just some distant, maybe-it'll-happen possibility. It was imminent and arguably inevitable. The text doesn't just casually say we were in trouble. It leverages a universally understood idiom that literally triggers our biological stress responses. It crafts this intense psychological state where the walls are closing in and all standard everyday options have been entirely exhausted.
Which brings us to part 2, the intervention, defying the inevitable.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how the sudden introduction of a miracle completely shatters all that preceding despair we just talked about. A miracle isn't a clever business strategy. It's not a logical backup plan that was sitting in a drawer. It is, by definition, a surprising and welcome event that totally defies natural or scientific laws. It introduces a literally impossible rescue. Think about the context of the 11th hour we just discussed. Human effort has failed. The logical, completely expected outcome is utter ruin. But the word miracle, it disrupts the laws of physics and probability. It signifies an intervention from totally outside the established system. The sheer audacity of using that specific word tells us that the situation was so far gone that absolutely nothing short of the impossible could actually fix it.
And this brilliantly illustrates the severe emotional whiplash embedded right in the text. Look at the contrast. On one side, we have the 11th hour, representing time running out, a ticking clock, in imminent peril. It's a state of pure high anxiety. On the exact opposite side, we have the miracle, where time essentially freezes, an impossible intervention occurs, and ultimate salvation is achieved. Putting these two concepts right next to each other creates this violent, magnificent collision of emotions. We are dragged from the absolute blind panic of a ticking clock directly into the profound, overwhelming relief of a sudden rescue, all within the span of just a few words. It's an absolute masterstroke of contrast. It really is.
Okay, moving on to part 3. Grounded in reality, the immediacy of arrival.
Is here. Wow. These 2 tiny words do an unbelievable amount of heavy lifting. By concluding with is here, the statement removes absolutely all doubt and all delay. It takes this abstract, pie-in-the-sky hope and grounds it into an immediate, undeniable reality. Think about it for a second. It doesn't say the miracle is coming. It doesn't say it might happen soon if we just hold on. No. The wait is definitively over. The salvation is a present, tangible fact. The ticking clock of the 11th hour is abruptly and permanently silenced by the definitive thud of is here. It basically forces the listener to breathe a huge sigh of relief in real time because the danger has officially passed. The abstract, the completely impossible, has materialized right in front of us. So, when we actually map this out chronologically, it effectively forces an incredibly powerful 3-act narrative structure onto a static 7-word sentence. It's like a giant puzzle fitting together perfectly. Step 1 is the setup and rising action, the ticking clock of the 11th hour. Step 2 is the climax, the impossible intervention of the miracle. And Step 3 is the resolution, the immediate arrival, the absolute confirmation that it is here. In just a handful of words, we get a complete beginning, a middle, and an end. We experience the threat, the massive saving action, and the new, secure status quo.
It's an incredibly lean, brilliantly constructed piece of storytelling that maps perfectly onto the emotional arc of a full feature-length film or a massive epic novel.
And finally, Part 4, The Aftermath of Salvation, Synthesizing the Impact.
Let's review the total impact of what we've just unpacked. 1. Extreme peril is established instantly. 2. An impossible rescue is delivered right when it's needed most. 3. Immediate presence is confirmed. And 4. A complete 180-degree emotional shift is achieved. Through these 7 little words, we are taken on a complete transformative journey. We go from standing on the absolute terrifying brink of disaster straight into guaranteed safety. It fundamentally alters whatever crisis necessitated the miracle in the first place. The immense power of this text lies in its absolute authority. It doesn't ask us to believe the miracle happened. It boldly declares it as an unavoidable truth of the brand new reality we now inhabit.
As we wrap up this explainer, we are left to ponder the ultimate consequence of this sudden salvation. Now that the 11th hour miracle is actually here, what happens in the 12th hour? I mean, disaster has been averted, yes, for sure, but the timeline keeps moving. What is the actual cost of a miracle? What does life even look like after you've stared into the absolute abyss and been inexplicably pulled back? The immediate danger is gone, but the changed reality remains. It's a really fascinating, honestly slightly haunting question to chew on as you go about your day. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive into the anatomy of a 7-word artifact. Keep analyzing the words around you because you really never know what massive, world-altering stories are hiding right there in plain sight.